lights. There we go. Well, that's loud. Oh, yeah, you can.
Oh, raise them up.
Raise them up. I'm starting with a crack. Anything that's on the table is loud. Huh, okay. I think we're live. I think if my eyes can see, there's a couple of viewers, so let's do it.
This is the Okayest Hunter podcast. Never pass on shooter bucks, because that's just meat in the freezer. It's your tag, you hunt how you want. This is Okayest Hunter.
Hey, welcome to the Okayest Hunter podcast. Coming at you from not the Okayest Hunter podcast studio. We are in St. Lawrence, New York?
I guess technically
Clayton, New York. That is quiet.
Is it quiet?
Okay. I'm gonna raise it up. Then it's maybe a little better. Uh-oh. Oh, that was on purpose.
What?
I had to cut that music short.
Oh.
Anyway, we're brought to you by Half Rack. Go to half-rack.com. Use code OHP. Save yourself 15% off. They just launched their new cooler, the Meat Lug. It's ginormous. I think you can fit 3 30-packs in there with a full bag of ice and have room to spare. But really, I think the design is meant to be for like packing out meat. So the story or the word on the word in the deer woods is that you can fit a whole doe in that thing, quartered out, deboned, with that bag of ice. And if you wanted to fly with that, I've heard that people have done it. So really? That's a thing.
That's a thing.
Make sure you check out our other partners, Latitude Outdoors. Use code OHP. The Method 2 saddle is what I use. It's a great 2-piece system. We had it at Foam Fest last weekend on Saturday, and countless people were in the saddle trying it out, flinging arrows from it, and really enjoyed it from what I heard. Greg was pretty happy to be leading on that front and training people, educating people, and showing them how to use it. Also, we're showing off the Spartan Forge app. We gave away a number of annual subscriptions there. So if you were able to attend, a few folks won some annual subscriptions there to Spartan Forge. And is your thing going? Is it working? Did it pop out? Uh-oh. And then additionally, check out Go Wild. They were able to give us a trad bow, a recurve bow, and also a Garmin watch. I forget which one, but it was like $550. So courtesy of those guys, they sent some great product to give away. We gave away, it ended up being about $4,500 worth of product at Foam Fest for raffles. And we did give away a bow to the most average score. So everyone that shot the course, we added up the total sum of everybody's total score and then divide that up by the number of shooters. And the average score was 243, and someone had 243 as their total score. So they won the Bear Legit Ready to Hunt bow. So thanks Bear Archery for sending us a couple bows. And then we had a woman's bow is pink. I mean, it could be a man's bow if they wanted pink, but Derek, our co-host, his daughter is her fifth birthday. I think it was 5th. Could have been 4. I don't know. Derek will have to correct me. But anyway, Penny won the pink bow. So it was like the best outcome that we could have anticipated.
Keep it in the fam.
Super serendipitous, but awesome. But so anyway, the background looks pretty different today if you're watching on the live stream. I can't respond to any comments because the computer's far away. I can't respond to Instagram because the phone's far away. So if you comment, thank you. Chat amongst yourselves. I can't do anything about it. But I'm sitting here with Bailey Eigbrett. Did I say your last name right, Bailey?
Yeah.
I'm known to get last names wrong a lot.
Yeah, that was good.
Bailey is the host of the world's worst fishing podcast.
Yeah, that's right. Cheers to that. Cheers to that.
So it's funny because we're the Okayest Hunter, but Bailey runs the Serious Angler podcast, which is a really legitimate and serious fishing podcast. Bailey himself is would you call yourself a pro kayak angler?
No.
But you win tournaments. You've held giant checks.
I'm an enthusiast.
I'm an enthusiast.
I think a pro, to have that label, you have to do it for a living.
Okay, that's fair. But you do it really well on the side.
I've put a lot of time into it, is what I'll say.
Yeah. So, but anyway, this is a deer hunting podcast, but we're here for a fishing event for our day job. So I thought, well, I don't want to miss an episode. And I asked if you could come on the podcast to talk about deer hunting because you're a New Yorker, upstate New Yorker.
Western technically, but yeah, I mean all over the state, really.
Well, okay. And you've shared some deer hunting stories with me from you and your brother. And I thought, well, hey, you do deer hunt. Yeah. And if Fletcher comes walking through that door, he can join us. We'll plug in another mic. But I don't know, talk about maybe just your heritage with deer hunting growing up and why you chose to become a fishing person, not a deer hunting person.
Really, the upbringing was same on par in regards to fishing versus hunting. I think actually my family was more into hunting than they were actually into fishing. Mm-hmm. For whatever reason, my entire life, I've always veered towards the trail less traveled, if that makes any sense, which kind of makes sense why I went fishing when my whole family's diehard bow hunters. But essentially it was, my dad was taking me hunting when like he'd give me like his hand-me-down and it'd be like a dress when his jacket, like it was him carrying me basically into the woods, into a blind to be freezing cold during gun season. I don't know. It was just one of those things. My parents always had me outdoors to begin with from before I could even walk. I caught my first fish. I don't even remember. I was so young. I have no memory of that. So for me, like for hunting, it was always it was super cool watching Dad come home with the truck and all camoed out, deer in the back, and then we'd be eating good for months on end. And it was almost like a thing where it's like, I just wanted to be of age to where I can go and help put food on the table with my dad. And then I learned quickly growing up, my dad, this is his fault, which I give him all the credit for, which I'm glad it happened, but he's not the kind of guy that can go 50% into something. If he has a passion, he goes 100% full bore, OCD, over passionate about it. And that's what I did for fishing, but also had a phase where I really did that for bow hunting. When I had finally gotten my hunting license and my bow hunting license up here in New York, for whatever reason, the drive was crazy to go out and shoot my first deer. And the week before season started, I broke my collarbone. So there was no possible way that I was pulling a bow back. So I had to wait till the next season.
So that's a lot of buildup.
Yeah.
So that's worse than like if a boxer takes a swing and misses. It's kind of like that.
Pretty much.
It's a lot of wasted energy.
It was like months and months of practicing from, my first ever like hunt where I was actually
like hunting blue
able
balls.
to yeah, pretty much. It was a tease is what it was. And so I wasn't able to hunt. I still went out and sat in the sling with my dad out in the stand and all that. But
were you the kind of kid that was just like kicking rocks? Like, oh man.
Yeah, I was pissed every morning, but like I was also gonna be more pissed if my dad didn't wake me up to go with him. So it was one of those things where it's like I was just excited for the next year. And it was just kind of one of those things where for me, like I enjoy hunting on my own because I love the serenity of it, where everything kind of calms down as soon as you start going in the woods. So your thoughts, everything in your brain just kind of turns off. But for me, hunting was always a thing that I did to bond with my dad, my uncle, my brother. My brother and I are hunting buddies, that sort of thing. And for me, for fishing, my brother is for hunting. So he's got that crazy, wild passion for it. But ever since then, it was just like a thing I did for, family.
No, it's a family thing.
Yeah.
And you bow hunt and gun hunt. So you still do both. I know some people that it's a family thing, but therefore they only really gun hunt.
Yeah.
The fact that you still bow hunt. So like, when do you switch those gears? Because fishing's like going to go on for a while longer here before it gets too cold. And you're pretty hardcore with that. So when does that switch happen for you?
So, really, when I got full bore into fishing, obviously it conflicted because the fall is an amazing time to fish in New York. And obviously that conflicts with bow season because ours starts October 1st. Really, it's not really a switch gears for me. It's a try to squeeze in target practice and putting out cameras and then finding days that would really, really suck fishing wise, which actually is kind of nice because like bow season, if it's a nicer day is when I'd go bow hunting because nicer days in the fall suck fishing wise. So then when it's nastier out, I go fishing. I don't go to the stand. But then there's some days where it's like, if there's crazy pressure drops or whatever, I'll be like,
which one do I pick?
I know I want to go smallmouth fishing, but I also should go sit in the stand because pressure drop, they're going to be moving. So I don't know. It was one of those things I have to teeter with. But what I always told my brother was let's try to tag out fast so that we can go back to fishing for the rest of the fall, at least
When
until
does
gun
season
season.
open in New York for bow?
So October 1st until I think it's the second weekend in November, and then we have like 2 or 3 weeks of gun season.
Okay, that's a long gun season. And then is your bow season over? Or does it extend into like a late season in like January?
We have a late bow for certain counties. It's not the whole state. Certain counties, and it's antler only for like the last. It's like 1 week after gun season's over.
And have you hunted other nearby states? Because like everything's with like Pennsylvania's right. That's not far. Like there's a lot of other nearby states that would have good whitetail hunting. Have you ventured out in other states or no?
Yeah, there's great whitetail hunting in the Northeast. I've never gone out of state.
So just yeah.
I know it's always been one of those things for me where it's like, for whatever reason, I mean, we had the privilege of having, private land and all that really close to home. And it was always good. We always had great amount of population, but also, a great maturity of bucks. And it was just like one of those things. It's like, I don't need to. And I never really had that. I don't know, for whatever reason, I've never had the drive to go on a hunting adventure or a trip or anything like that. Whereas fishing, it's like, yeah, I want to go to Texas and go fish in Texas. I've never had I want to go hunt a different state. I don't know. I never really had that push.
Well, so we've been hanging out with all these pro anglers and like Justin Atkins, and we asked him this question, like, if you weren't a pro angler, what would you be? He said pro deer hunter, but he's like, not because I'm good at it, because I just want to hunt all the time.
Yeah.
And he actually seemed like he assimilated with the Okayest Hunter as a deer hunter, which I was like, oh, that's kind of cool, because clearly you're a pro angler. You do that full time. So then come hunting season, like he gets to take a crack at something else. It's kind of cool. I know Fletcher Shryak, who's staying here with us, he had said deer hunting is so addicting that he couldn't do it because once he got a deer, he couldn't keep doing it for that season. He's like, oh my God, now I have this big void. And a lot of guys will hunt multiple states so they can continue to do it and have more tags, more opportunities, more learning.
Right.
And I think the guys that hunt multiple states, like they kind of compound that learning. Because if you could take, if you did hit an early season Wisconsin buck in September, or you were in like Nebraska, where you could do velvet in August, you could really kind of go on like a deer tour, kind of like the hunting public guys seem to do, where they're killing so many deer. It's because they're in several states.
Yeah.
That's got to be expensive though, too, the tags for that.
Yeah, but all in all, I mean, it's I think when you're doing that, you're accelerating your learning curve.
Yeah, right.
Yeah.
You're basically having like several seasons in one season.
Right.
So that compounding effect makes you a better hunter.
Same thing in fishing, where it's like you go to a lake that has a better population of fish, you have a more, control group of trial and error, so it's you're expanding your amount that you can experiment, I guess, if you will, to put yourself in more situations to help you adapt. And then it's new surroundings, new different things that help you learn that way. Like, I don't know, like we were just talking about, that's more you hunt, the better you get.
Yeah. Talk about some of the, so there's things with fishing where it's like you're breaking down large bodies of water. You're looking for terrain features. You're looking for vegetation features. You're looking for, depth. If this is the sun hitting the water and heating it up here, like same thing with deer hunting. If the sun's hitting a side of the hill and it's cooking hot, those deer are going to seek out shade. In some cases, they're going to seek out water. They're going to travel various ways, take the path of least resistance and so forth. And like, do you find as you're targeting fish and large fish based on the type of podcast you do you pull from like the fishing world, and do you see similarities?
Yeah.
Because you're a way better fisher than I, whatever, like I can't cast the way you guys do even. It's ridiculous.
Dude, this is my favorite topic. Almost, I would rank it top 3 topic that I like to talk about on our show is the correlation between targeting mature bucks and targeting mature bass, because they're exactly the same. They act the same way, they behave the same way. And there's a reason why both of them live as long as they do.
They're territorial even, aren't they?
Yes.
Yeah.
100%. Like, I mean, not to go full bore fishing here, but like you have a school of bass and say they're all, mature, older, 4 or 5 pound class fish. They're all together. Your 6-7 pound class is going to be 100 yards off bond lonesome. Exactly how a mature buck typically acts until the early spring or spawn, when it's time to, do the nasty, is when they start getting grouped up with everything else, which is your better chance
Bachelor
to catch them.
groups and
yeah. Same with bucks, right? The rut, like that's your best time to kill a giant. So it's, I don't know, it's one of those cool correlations where I see it even in the pros. The guys that, for the most part, do so well consistently and are always on bigger caliber fish are also guys that are diehard hunters in the off season. So it's a cool correlation. I love when those guys come on because I always bring this up. because they think about it the same way. So it's super cool to kind of break down the two and how similar they really are. Because I mean, you mentioned the sun hitting a certain side of the mountain first. Same thing happens with fish, especially early season and in the late fall. When the water temperatures are cooling, fish relate to the heat. So if one side of the bank gets warmer before the other, the majority of your fish are going to be on that warmer side of the bank, or at least that's the bite's going to start getting better on that side of the bank because the water temperatures will rise more than if they're shade. So I don't know, that whole correlation thing, it amazes me, and I love studying that.
Well, so even like vegetation, you're looking for like, weed beds or what have you.
Same thing.
Deer, like you talk. So a term that I've heard the hunting public talk about, and then I've inquired about with my co-host Greg and Derek, is something called high stem count. And so if you're in an area with high stem count, it means there's a lot of different types of vegetation coming together and converging. So you're looking for like converging terrain, so number of points that come together to create like travel corridors, or high stem count may be like, different vegetation groups are coming together and it's creating like, again, walls of ways for the deer to travel with a backdrop, or they're not going to be silhouetted and they can kind of blend in and feel like they have some cover behind them. So they feel safer walking that, or there's just more to eat. Again, my co-hosts aren't here. They're the ones that actually know how to do this stuff. I just hear about it all. But in terms of like, fishing, if it's just barren and there's nothing to eat, nothing to hide it in, nothing to like have cover, provide cover, like that's a different fish than, I see a lot of anglers targeting like where we were today. There was a lot of weeds. And as a Okayest fisher, I'm not trying to cast in the weeds because I don't want to get tangled up in weeds all the time. And what they were doing is they're casting right on, literally on top of the disgusting, nasty weeds and letting that lure plunk in, and boom, they were catching fish. I'm like, oh my God, I've been doing it wrong my whole life. I've been avoiding the weeds and you should be going right into them. That's deer hunting. Like you should be going into the thick stuff, not avoiding. People are looking for open timber because it's like, I can move in this as a human.
It's easier.
This isn't thick. I'm not getting thorn bushes. I can see very far.
Yeah.
But just because you can see far and it's comfortable for you, that's not what the deer is trying to hide up. And so the thicker you go, the more opportunity you're probably going to find, the more sign you're going to find.
Yeah. And so with that, we have a saying amongst some bass anglers is you got to put it where they live.
Yes, you got to hunt where the bucks live.
That's right.
This is crazy cool.
It's so similar in regards to like the nastier the stuff, the more they're going to feel comfortable. If you're not putting it where they live, you're not going to catch them.
You're not hunting where big bucks live. You're not going to shoot. You're not going to shoot them. You're not going to get them.
Yeah. We say, put it where they live. Worry about getting them out later.
So you guys have like practice days in tournaments, or the pros do, or what have you. In kayaking, you do too. But like my cousin does what I would call speed scouting. So he'll scout in season, but he'll speed scout, meaning he'll just burn a property as fast as humanly possible to see if there's any buck sign on it or bucks betting on it or whatever he's like, the caliber buck that he's after. And that speed scouting is a way to like cross properties off as you're going from public land to public land to public land. Because if a buck doesn't live there, there's no point in hunting it as far as he's concerned. So if that's what you're targeting, is that older age class deer, like just checking, like I would in the past just go sit a spot because that was the land that I could get to or I could have access to. And I didn't ever stop to validate, is a mature or a bigger buck living here? I was just like, well, here's a tree, I'll put up in it. And like, if something comes by, great. And like the number of hunts I've wasted just sitting there waiting for something to happen was most of them. Now I learned to get a little bit more aggressive and hunt the sign. I keep going and keep going and keep going until I find the sign. And then I start to figure it out a little bit and put up somewhere. Right. Like I imagine fishing when you're doing those practice days, you're just trying to locate where these fish are, but it might be different the next day. That's where I get confused with the practice days, but same thing with hunting. It could be different next week because the beans died or a doe got hot or whatever.
Right. Yeah. And like, alike hunting and fishing, it's always changing. But yeah, I mean, practice days for us are usually we're not trying to catch fish most of the time. There's certain scenarios where you want to catch maybe one or two just to see like if there's numbers there. You want to also know that there's a size class because typically in tournaments, obviously bigger fish are going to win. So you want to make sure that those fish live there. Nowadays, technology's changed that a little bit, but for the most part, yeah, I mean, you want to cover water. Even if you cover a lot of water and you don't find much production, what you're at least doing is same with hunting. You're finding stuff that's a waste of time.
That's it.
You're racing water is what we call it. It's dead water, if you will. And same thing when you're hunting, you can understand the high percentage areas. And that's what we do. You cover water fast and just try to understand as much of the lake as you can in the time that you're allotted. And then once you can kind of figure out your high percentage areas, then you go and try to figure out a pattern within that area to get a fish to bite. And then you go to trying to figure out your cadence from a tournament. Where are you going to start? What's your ABC? What's your fallback? If these are conditions, where do you resort to there? Same as like hunting.
Yeah, hunting is like, what's the wind? What's my exit and entry point? So based on if I have 3 properties to pick from, like I might not hunt 1 or 2 because I'm not getting the prevailing wind that I want, and so therefore, if I access it this way, I'm gonna blow all the deer out of there with this. My scent's gonna carry through and bump them all out before I even get to the stand. So like, you got to have an ABC based on weather outcomes and just your availability of days that you can hunt. Like I have 3 children, a job, and this. So like, if I can hunt one of those days out of the week, then I got to have different properties I can look at to access because I want to go do a hunt, but I don't want to do a hunt if it's going to be a waste of time, so to speak. And I don't think any hunt is a total waste. That's not, I guess, what I'm saying. I'm just saying, like, if I want to have the best odds for success, and success for me is
high percentage,
is relative.
Right.
Like, I'm not necessarily after mature bucks. I'm just after some meat, like, and some fun and some experience and like something I can put an arrow through. And you compounding knowledge over the years, it's gotten easier easier is relative too, but for me, at least, I've had eyes on more larger bucks more frequently over the last several seasons because I've started to put things together, but I've not been able to dedicate the time. And I think time is the big thing, that it's an asset you either do have or don't have. If you're a pro or, you're a lot of these like whitetail hunters are getting hired on by companies to be a full-time hunter because they want content from these guys. And then they just get to spend all their time in the woods. If I could spend all my time in the woods, again, that compounding knowledge effect,
you're going to get better.
You're going to get better, and you're going to have more sightings, more opportunities. But if you can only go like 5 times a season, you got to try to be, like I say, some people work smarter, harder. I'm like, work smarter and harder.
Yeah.
Like
both.
Go do some speed scouting, burn through some properties, like see what you can do.
Yeah.
I don't know. It's interesting. But you have a really ginormous kayak that has some propulsion power, backed by some great batteries, as the hat denotes.
That's right.
Shout out to XU Power for helping us be here. But I would say, if I were you, I would be really curious to be like, I'm gonna go fish and bring my pole, but I'm also gonna bring my bow, and I'm gonna just have the camouflage in the bag. And if I bump into some nice areas that I know public is around, I might just dock this kayak and go hunt for a little bit. And like Parker McDonald in the whitetail world, he hosted Mark Kenyon from Meat Eater, from Wired to Hunt, and he taught him basically, like, this is how I kayak hunt. And Parker, Southern Collective, I forget what he just rebranded. He's known in the whitetail community as like one of the kayak, aka podcasters, but he does kayak water access almost exclusively. So he's kayaking into these like islands off of river bodies, and he's getting opportunities at some really cool deer because he's mitigating the hunting pressure. A lot of people do it that way, but way less than anyone that's just going to park somewhere and walk in.
Than your average state land. That is.
Then you're getting potentially more opportunities at sightings and to kill them. And like, there's nothing more, like, in my opinion, it just looks so freaking cool when you got a buck piled up in a kayak. And that's how you're dragging it out. And I think the dragging out then part's really easy. You just float it down the river. Like, have you ever considered that?
Oh, 100%.
Have you done it or no? Like, maybe you have.
I've tried it a couple times. I've tried the old New York surf and turf, we'll call it, where you try to go after your walleyes in the morning and then transition throughout the day. I've never really had any success. I've only tried it, I think twice officially.
Did you have any sightings at least or anything, or no?
Oh yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, for sure. My problem
some
is
measure of success.
Yeah. The only problem for me is in New York, a lot of our bodies of water, when I'm fishing, I like that time of year anyways, I'm well offshore. And that's just where my mind goes back to, where you need to be doing it back in some of our rivers or southern, marshes that, they have, like the creeks that feed back into them. And the fishing then is like zero back in there. So that's part of my problem. But a buddy of mine does it a lot. We'll go and do a creek float for walleye. And he brings like his 30-30 and stuff, and he's killed one doing that.
Yeah, you can shoot. I don't know about New York, but in Wisconsin, you can shoot from the flotation device because the river is considered public.
Yeah.
I don't know. There was a regulation I read a number of years ago that broke that down. And I had to get some clarity around it because I forget like retrieving and how that all works. But you could quite literally shoot from like your canoe, kayak, whatever, as long as there's no like gas powered motor. So I think if you have like electronic trolling motor, that still counts. It can't just be like,
Right.
it has to be like a canoe or something like
Yeah.
that. And then you could. And I think your kayak is so damn big and stable, you could fully attempt to do it that way. If
Yeah, probably
like
could.
you're coming up on an oxbow and a bend, those
Yeah.
deer tend to bed down in those quite often.
Yeah.
I don't know how many times you spook deer when you're
A lot.
going down a river, you know?
Yeah, I mean, because of from the kayak, I mean, it's so quiet, right?
It can be,
It's not intrusive. And there's so many times where, I mean, some of our lakes we have in New York are 9.9 and lower, so there's no houses on them because they're the water source.
What does 9.9 mean?
So like 9.9 horsepower and lower. So
Got
like
it. Okay.
the big 250s we were around this week, you can't take those out there. And so there's no houses on them because they are the water source for some of the cities. So it's nice because there's no jet skis, no nothing. It's kind of you and yourself in the most mornings when you go out there. And I can't tell how many deer and stuff I've been able to creep up to because they have no idea that I'm even there. I exist. So I mean, I see them all the time. I just never really, I guess I didn't really put the concerted effort to trying to accomplish that. But you know, with the YouTube channel, that's one thing I would love to do one day is to have like accomplish a 5-fish limit of smallmouth, but also kill a deer the same day.
Yes,
my buddy's done it with walleye. He's got his limit of walleye, and he saw a deer, put his foot up on the bank in his kayak still, and shot a doe, and then brought it home and had quite literally a New York surf and turf, as we've called it ever since that day.
That would be a really cool day of eating to get back and
was awesome.
cook up some back straps and just.
Yeah, I was
walleye too, man. That's good eating.
Yeah, it was the day I was actually supposed to go with him, but I had told my fiance I would take her on a date. So I went on a date day and got a call, and he goes,
Probably
"Hey,"
wouldn't have done it if you were with him.
He's like, "I need some help cleaning this deer." I'm like, "No way, you did it the one day I didn't get to go."
Man, that's cool.
Yeah.
No, the kayak thing is it's becoming a bigger and bigger draw. And like, I don't know, I'm the opposite of you, where like I would just ditch the pole and go full blown whitetail. Like I'm like, oh my God, I need to explore this island. I need to go check it for bucks on. I need to look for beds. Like I would just be going in and in and in. Like where you guys would be like, I'm gonna go explore this body of water and I want to understand it. I'm like obsessing over the whitetail side.
Yeah.
And when you can get in a kayak, like your access just goes way up. Your opportunity of access is significantly increased.
Well, yeah, I mean, you think about it. There's how many.
And then those bucks aren't pressured. They're not touched.
Right.
They think they're invincible down there. They're warrior river monster bucks. Like,
yeah, where most people stop at that creek or river, whatever have you, and they turn around. They use it as a boundary, whereas you can kind of use it as your asset to be quiet, get into stuff nobody else can.
I think it was 2 years ago, I put my waders on and I waded up like a stream. I wouldn't call it a river. Pretty sandy bottom, like walkable up to a certain point. I think the deepest I ever got was maybe a little below my chest, and I had chest waders on. But I had my bow, and like the first bend in the river I came up on, I bumped a doe, stood up, stared at me, and ran off. I was like, oh my God, I could maybe even kill one from the river or the stream. And I was clunking around all loud. I was just whoosh up the current, whoosh, dragging my feet. And I was actually with the current, but I was like trying to get over some deadfall, and I was being loud because I was just getting into this like stream, so I didn't think much of it. And then that happened. I was like, oh my gosh, I need to be silent going forward because there is a high probability that a buck might be laying in one of these oxbows, this bend, and I could kill him.
Yeah.
And so then I took like my sweet time, was dead silent walking up this river. And then when I actually got to the spot, I shot a doe and passed through, found my arrow. The arrow had broken off at the fletching, and then I never recovered her. The idea that we formulated as to why was because I hit her kind of high, and the blood never got to get up to that point to dump out to get a good blood trail. Yep. And then the fletching stuck in her. I saw her run off of the fletchings in her, so that could have blocked the entry hole.
Yeah.
So then maybe there wasn't enough blood coming out. So she may have died. Seemed like it was a great shot. Watch it replayed on our GoPro, and it looked like it was a good hit. Full pass through. Like there was like, oh, maybe got the dead zone. I was like, I don't know. But anyway, I was like jacked because I was like, holy shit, I pulled it off. Even though it was a doe, I was trying something new. I did see a buck. It was a small spike and it was too far. but he was kind of on the opposite side of this stream, and I was looking forward to like river dragging a doe or a buck out of this body of water, and it just didn't happen exactly the way that I wanted it to, but it was close. And that, like, I think when you take risks and you try to get out of your comfort zone and you try to explore new things and try new things, we talk about new bodies of water where there aren't fish that you're like, you don't know it really well.
Yeah.
That's when you start to increase your knowledge level. Like,
yeah, it makes you get a little more creative.
Yeah.
The imagination run a little bit more wild than your standard go in, do the same thing you've done for years sort of thing. Like something so simple, but something we overlooked for so long was when my brother and I both were of age where we could both, legally hunt, obviously. And we started getting super into it, super excited for season start every year, and actually started putting some research behind it and watching YouTube, reading on stuff. And we'd always go out with my dad and just do whatever my dad would tell us to do, sit where he told us to sit. And he never paid attention to wind at all. He'd just be like, you guys will sit over here. And we're like, hey, Dad, we probably should look into this thing because we're bumping a lot of deer because they're smelling us. And finally started doing some of that. And you can see the progression of actually like taking the time to, hey, let's try something so simple and beginner as reading wind when it comes to hunting.
Reading wind was the first big step in my whitetail hunting journey of like leveling up. Because initially I never paid attention to it. Like when I was gun hunting as a teenager and my dad had that green soap, I thought I was good. I was like, no, they can't smell me now. I got dirt spray and green soap.
I am invincible.
Like we're good. It didn't even occur to me that their noses were that good and they see the world with their nose and they smell to molecular level and all that. Like, I was a teenager. I don't know. I was like, cool. I shot with this stuff. Like we're good. The deer aren't going to smell me.
Yeah.
And I also had no concept of wind whatsoever. So eventually, I understood wind. I understood like scent mitigation to some degree. And then, like understanding thermos comes into play. There's just water access. Like there's just so many things that come into play and it's still happening. I still am going to learn something that is going to like completely change my thought process. In fact, like last year I learned from Derek, who does a show with us, rub clusters and what that means. These bucks are burning daylight just around their bedding area before they start to make their trek to wherever their food destination is in like last light conditions. And so the tighter you get to that bedding, the faster you can intercept them while there's still daylight. Mm-hmm. And so if you find a rub cluster, that's like money. And a rub cluster is very different than like a signpost rub where all the bucks are doing it as like a big, this is the big tree they all rub. That's that buck is going way out of his bed to like communicate something.
Yeah.
Versus when they're doing rub clusters, it's like they're very comfortable. They're in their bedding area or slightly there around it. And like that was like, whoa, I think I found a rub cluster once, but I didn't realize that's what I had found, which is different than a rub line. And I was like, what other piece of information?
Yeah.
Like, in the hunting public talks about scent bumping a deer, where you lightly bump the deer so then they will come back because you didn't completely scare the crap out of them by trudging through, banging everything around like a bat out of hell and taking a shot at it. Like there's different tactics you can apply to like gain some learnings. And it's a never ending puzzle piece. Mm-hmm. And it changes every season. Every season there's a new challenge or what have you. And it's like, and getting mobile. So like with your kayak, like if you got a saddle and you got a platform and suddenly now you're like getting into trees and stuff.
Yeah.
And the kayak game is just,
if I can hunt, because my October is crazy. I've determined I might have maybe 1 or 2 mornings possible to hunt in October. I will be hunting from a saddle this year. It'll be my first year doing it.
No doubt. Good. Which one are you going to get? Do you know yet?
Basically,
you want to get a discount on the method too?
No, my brother has a whole system. I think it's tethered. That he left behind. He moved up to Utah. He got a whole new setup, basically because he forgot it. So he was just like, "Hey, you can take mine now." So now cool. I got a free saddle set up to go and experiment with. I got a piece of public that I want to try this year that found late gun season last year that I think has a lot of potential. So that's going to help me a bit more than trying to trudge around a climber.
Yeah, climbers are hard because it limits your tree selection.
Mm-hmm.
I've never hunted out a climber. There's
things like
never had the appeal for it. I think they're safe, but then if you have to like poop, that's going to be the longest climb down a tree I've ever had in my life. Like I consider jumping down. Like get me out of this thing,
Yeah.
For
for sure.
I mean, it takes time to get out of other stuff too, but
Yeah.
I don't know. I just feel like shimmying down a tree.
I'm just looking more forward to being more adaptable to where I'd like to hunt. Whereas like a climber, obviously,
Yeah, you
is
got to pick one no
pretty-
limbs. It's like
Yeah.
straight no limbs, but if you have a saddle and a platform,
Yeah,
you
you
can pick
can.
the litter.
Yeah, you can kind of get really creative with it.
Yep.
I don't think many people in New York are doing that. A lot of our public land here in New York, at least I know there's some folks that hunt it well. A lot of people don't hunt it very well.
Who are some of the notable hunters here in New York? Do you know of any? I probably would if I heard them or if I could think about it for a second. But
Some of the best hunters that I know here in New York, don't have any social media.
Sure,
Have
that's
nothing
common,
like.
actually. Yep.
They're the blue
unknown
collar
hunters.
9 to 5.
Yeah.
All they care about is just getting back for the last 3 hours, of daylight type of deal in October, or the weekends, or they're the people that literally take off from like
Full rut.
2 days from Halloween till like November 5th. That's the only time they take off just for
Mhm.
that time of year. I wouldn't say we have anybody that people would even know about.
Sure.
I guess in New York. I'm sure we might even do. I'm just not the guy that would know of them.
Yeah. Like
think
if you asked
my
me,
brother
who are
would
the
know.
fishers in Wisconsin? I'd be like, now Tom Kimos. I don't know anybody.
Yeah,
Like,
yeah, right. Same deal. I'm sure my brother would know who they were, but
yeah. If he listens to it, I'll have to maybe I'll message in. I don't know if he's.
I'll send this to him. Yeah.
Go comment on that. And tell us who it is.
He's currently on I showed you pictures. He's on a backpacking mission, camping mission, solo trip, whatever, soul searching in Yellowstone.
That's cool.
By
That's
himself.
right. That elk.
Yeah, elk. He came up with he came 20 yards away from a grizzly.
Oh gosh.
Yesterday. Got some sick photos of it. I think he's going down this path of he tried to be a state trooper here in New York, and he got all the way to the end, and they told him he was too young. He was 21. So he kind of like lost hope he still wants to be in law enforcement, but he's really found this new passion for photography. I think it's because when he's out there, obviously he's a hunter. He loves to shoot something. He's like, well, if I can't shoot it with a bow, I might as well shoot it with something.
Yeah.
Use the camera for now. But he moved out there just because like he loves being outside. So he went and.
Does he come home for hunting season at all then, or no? Do you think he will?
I don't know. He moved out 5
recent.
months ago.
Okay.
So he's just been out there every single weekend. He leaves on a Friday and camps overnight and just goes and explores mountain ranges by himself. Comes back Monday
He'll become
morning
a
for
guide
work
or something. That's cool.
Yeah, so he's living life over there, but it'll suck because it's my hunting buddy.
Yeah.
I don't have a hunting buddy.
What kind of stories do you have that stand out in your mind? Of course, I want to know some of your Okayest Hunter moments, because
There's a
if you're
lot.
not hunting as much as you're fishing, I guarantee you have a bunch. You got to rattle a couple off. If you got any good ones with him to start, it'd be cool.
Yeah, I'll start with the best one, and it'll go down probably as the best hunting story I'll ever have in my entire life, because we both agreed that it'll never happen to us ever again.
Yeah, well, first of all, he moved away, so that's
Well, that too, that too. But I'm hoping at least to go out there and maybe do some elk stuff. But regardless, we had him and I, especially during COVID. I got laid off when COVID started. I came back from internship, had a job for a couple months. And really was laid off until I started at Gunpowder with you guys. And that gave us a lot of time. I was trying my freelance thing at the time. So really my schedule was what I wanted to make it. And he was in college, so he wasn't really working at the time. So we got to hunt a lot. And I think that really helped us that year because we went full bore into it. And there was one day, it was October 14th. So we had season for 2 weeks. And we weren't going to go out the next day. We actually had something we had to do. We couldn't remember. We had until like 11 a.m. or something like that. We weren't going to go out. But at 9:30, he comes running into my room and he goes, "Hey, the forecast changed. You see there's a pressure drop." I'm like, "All right, let's go pack the truck." So we went and packed the truck super last minute, in bed by like 11 p.m. Woke up at 4, got everything set. And we were running a little bit late because the sun started coming over the mountain where we're at. And this was a piece of private property. It was about 20.
You're late to the woods.
Yeah.
Typical Okayest Hunter.
Yeah.
Move.
Yeah.
It's just call that as I see it.
We made the old Burn Dairy, which is a little gas station / a little mart type of deal, to go get our breakfast sandwiches, chocolate milk.
In Wisconsin, everyone's going to Quick Trip.
Exact. Same deal. And so we were a little bit late to the woods. Sun was coming over. It's a 20-acre property. We had it pretty dialed, obviously, being that small. And so what we had is towards the end of the property, there was a really deep ridge line. And when looking at it on the ridge line on the left side and the right side, it's almost identical. So you'd have about 50, 60 yards of open timber and then into pines
Mhm.
on both sides. On top of it was kind of where they would feed there's a lot of apple trees, farm fields, cornfields, all that.
This
jazz
isn't your
up.
private land, right?
This is the private land.
Okay, it is. Okay.
Yeah, so this was actually my grandfather's best friend. He's like, you come whenever the hell you want, make it yours.
Oh, that's cool.
Come hunt whenever you want. And the deal was like, we'd come over for dinner and make him venison. So
Yeah.
he was super cool dude. Below that property was all like the thickest marsh and thickets you could think of. That's where they would bed. So we were on the highway essentially. And so there's a pond right where we park. We walk down into. It was just light enough we could see the sun come over the mountains, dark enough where we couldn't really see too much in front of us. And we start going, making our trek down into the woods. We kicked something up to begin with. We couldn't see what it was, but like when you hunt enough and you
know
kick up
it's a
enough
bigger
deer,
deer,
you can tell by the sound of like how hard they're hitting. Like you can almost tell the weight,
Yep.
how big that animal is. And we knew it was big. We just couldn't see what it was. They went up. To this day, this will come full circle. We get basically almost to his first stand. He's on the left side of the ridge. I'm on the right. And so you have to walk. I have to walk all the way up and around to get to my stand, which I found this perfect spot on this property in this open timber on the right side of the this ridge are 2 pine trees with a giant oak in the middle.
Okay.
So I climbed up, cut a hole out of it and everything like the July before, and had a climber up in there. We get almost to his stand. He goes, crap, I forgot my phone. I'm like, do you need it? He goes, nah. He goes, I might as well go get it because he likes to sit on his phone. We send stupid stuff.
I can't
to each other.
sit here with that.
Yeah, it's millennials. But he comes. I go, all right, I'm gonna go to my stand. I'm gonna get settled. I get over to my spot. I'm up. I get up my climber. I'm set. Everything's good to go. I get a text from him. He goes, I'm on my way back in. And a couple minutes go by. I go to text my fiance good morning because it's about that time she was getting up for work. And as a mid-text, I get a text from my brother that says, legs coming towards you, can't see what it is. And about that time, I look up, and all I see is rack coming straight where I want him. Now. Yeah, I'm just like heart pumping, like that same adrenaline rush we've all experienced. And it's like, oh crap. I'm like, easily, first thing I know, that would be the biggest deer in my life. And just from a simple point of like, also, I was fishing super good this time of year. So I was like, I want to put these things down so I can go back to fishing. And so,
I'm extra motivated because I'm like, I just want to get this whitetail done with. But I have the same sense, but it's usually because I want to make my wife happy because she would prefer I'm not hunting.
Yeah, fill this tag, get this over with. And so I had been practicing so much because obviously, like I was saying, COVID year, so we didn't have much to do besides practice and scout. And this thing comes perfect down the line. What are my shooting angles? Got it at 25. It's a beautiful, probably 4 or 5 year old deer. We never actually aged it. Which 4 or 5 year old buck in New York is good because usually it's
you want the buck with the dad bod. You want that saggy belly.
Yeah. It was a beautiful deer. I think it was a little bit over. I think it was like 153. And drew back on it. Perfect shot. Went 20 yards. Heart shot. Died. Watched it die. And I get a text from my brothers. Fuck yeah! Like he watched it all go down because like from stand to stand, we're like maybe 80 yards from each other, so we can see each other.
Yep.
It's nice to give each other middle finger or whatever randomly through the day, whatever. And so I'm like, yeah, he's dead.
Is your brother older or younger, by the way?
He's 4 years younger.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. So you're the bigger brother asshole.
Yes.
Okay.
Yes, but he gives it worse than me. I tolerate the most of it.
Because you love him, because you're your little
that's
brother.
Right. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. And so I FaceTime my dad at this point, and because I was like, hey, that one we got on camera this year, like, just killed it. And he could see it on FaceTime and everything. And of course, I'm rubbing it in because my dad couldn't come; he had to work, so we're rubbing it in.
Oh my god!
Because he worked from home.
That's great.
And he's like, he goes, "You let your brother know? Like, did he see it?" And I'm like, I don't know. I look back, and he hadn't gotten in his stand at the time. I look back, and he's at full draw. on one. I think his was like 137, 138. And he's at full draw. Shoots his. It runs up, dies. And I'm literally on FaceTime with my dad as it happens. And I'm like, he just killed one. He's like, what are you talking about? I'm like, Josh just shot one. He goes, you're bullshitting me. And I'm like, no, I swear to God, like he just shot.
This is the craziest thing.
I'm not just yelling in the woods for nothing. And my brother goes, let's fucking go, like yelling across the ridge. And it was the craziest thing. Like we knew when once we confirmed like his deer was done, we just like had a crazy like bear hug in the woods. Like went nuts. We're like, this is never gonna happen.
We have so much work to do.
Yeah, this is gonna suck. This is awesome. And it was just like one of those moments where it's just like that was like again going back to that family thing, the bonding that was unreal. Where we went and cleaned him, dragged him out, we took him home, we got a bunch of pictures with him, like 2 beautiful deer from New York. Be able to like take those deer so close to each other, watch each other shoot these deer, and have them that like 5-10 minutes maybe apart was just unreal.
Yeah, that is
amazing. The full circle with the deer we think we kicked up that morning were those 2 deer because they kicked up and they came back down. We think we bumped them half a mile and then they started coming down.
That's wild, man.
So that's our theory anyway.
Yeah, there's no way to totally validate that, but you can make assumptions and you can think it's true in that. Yeah, right. Like, well, we don't know, but we think, and then therefore, we'll just go with that.
Like anglers that make stuff up, or like hunters do the same thing.
Yeah. That's a good one, man. That's so my dad and I both got bucks back to back last year, but not like that. Not like in the same patch of woods, not the same morning. It was a day apart, and it was like a large stretch down a highway because he was, but in the same town ish. And that was the first time. Yeah, it was the first time my dad and I archery both got really nice bucks, but bucks at all, and like got to take a photo with them together. And like that photo's, I gotta frame it. Like it's my kids are in it.
Super
and,
cool photo.
It was a pretty neat experience. And so my dad was hunting nearby. So when I was recovering my deer, he came too. He's like, can I come? I'm like, yes, absolutely. Yeah. Like, cause I don't know if I got it yet or not. So it'd be great if you're there to help, like track some blood and stuff. Yeah. And so the scene of crossing this river is funny because what people didn't see in some cases is I'm across the river and I stripped down my underwear just because I was like, I don't want to get my pants wet in my boots. I didn't bring waders. I didn't anticipate this was going to happen. Yeah. Greg just happened to have hip waders in his truck. So he was like, well, I'm wearing my hip waders. So I'm like, why don't you go across first and then throw them back to me? So I got to deal with all this drama. And he's like, I can't, there's too much overbrush. I'm not gonna be able to like lob these to you from shore. So he's like, I was like, all right, off come the pants. Tied them around my neck. Cause I'm like, I might want to put them back on to continue to track this thing. Mm-hmm. Brought my boots, my socks, still my pack on, my bow in my hand. Cause I might have to dispatch this deer. I'm not sure if it's dead or not. Well, Greg, as soon as he gets across the river, he sees the deer. He knows it's dead. Doesn't tell me. I get across the river and he's like, take a breath. Just take a breath. Look around. I'm like, don't tell me what to do. Chill out. I'm fine. I got it. We're gonna go figure this out. I got him. He's like, just look around. I'm like, oh, that's a huge blood. That's red blood. That's good. He's like, yep, just look around because he knew. And I saw it and I was like, oh my God, you son of a bitch. And then all of a sudden my dad, I look and it was like this scene from Talladega Nights. How do you get to his underwear so quick? My dad was wearing tidy white. He's like Will Ferrell, And I'm like, how do you get in his underwear so quick? I'm like, Dad, you don't got to come over. I'll just bring it. No, I'm coming over. And like, so then he did it too. And he moons us, which is weird. He's like, guys, look at this. Then he pulls his pants down. I'm like, God, Jesus, don't want to see that.
Come on, Dad.
Do it, But yeah, and I was like, it was just like a really cool moment, like the whole thing. So the fact that he got to be there for, and then he got a deer the next day, and it was just all pretty cool. And we both we weighed him. My uncle had a scale, like an industrial, very old scale. That we weighed the deer just because I weighed a deer before. But why? Because it was there and we could. It was just kind of a neat part of the story. But so sharing that with someone is like you get a double header catching bass, like you got today. Yeah, like
makes it so much.
You
better.
Double up, like it's super cool because it's a. If you didn't get a deer, you'd be so happy for your brother and vice versa. Yeah. The fact that you both did, you get to like, it elevates the shared experience to a level that's like hard to totally comprehend. Yeah. If you've never had that.
It is one of those feel. There really is no way to describe it besides just this added, like, if you ever when your team wins like a huge game, like it's kind of similar on part of that.
Yeah. That's a good, a good anecdote.
So a different form of adrenaline rush, if you will. It's more. I don't really know how to describe it.
So what's one of your more okayest hunts? Because that was a pretty good one.
I would say was my first year ever bow hunting. I don't know why my dad trusted me to do it, but he had my uncle couldn't hunt that year, so I got to borrow his climber.
Okay.
And my dad was educating me on the climber he was using, how to use it, whatever. And I'd use my dad's, but my uncle's a little different. I'm like, dude, I got this. Don't worry about it. Like, it's no big deal. Like, it's just a climber. I'll figure it out. And pick out my tree and everything, go scouting and all that jazz. And my dad walks with me to my tree. After we hunted together a few times, so I got kind of used to being in the woods with a weapon, like responsible for the weapon. And he's like, "All right, it's gonna be your first one on your own." And then so he walks me to my tree and he goes, "You want help putting the climber on?" I'm like, "No, I got it. Like, you go, Dad." Like, I was trying to be too grown up, and I get it all set up and everything.
Let's get into this thing. You're like, what am I doing?
Yeah, so I get it, and it's good. Like on the tree, I'm getting up. I'm about to the height I want to be at, and my foot slips in it a little bit. And dummy me, too excited, skip the steps of you connecting the top and the bottom together.
Oh no!
And this goes
The
back
bottom
to wearing the
drop out?
harness,
Yeah,
right?
being safe.
Important.
You know, it's not lame. Safety.
Bottom falls 20 feet down
my
to the base
God.
of the tree, and I'm like, Dad's gonna kill me.
It's not I'm gonna die. It's my dad's gonna kill me.
Yeah, that's what it was. And I'm sitting there, legs dangling, because I'm sitting on the rest of the top of
Yeah.
it, and I'm like, man, this kind of sucks. For part
As
of
a parent, you get really mad at your kids when they do stuff that can endanger themselves.
yeah.
You're like, I freaking told you not to do that.
Yeah.
Are you okay? But I'm really mad at you right now.
Yeah,
Like,
yeah.
So I get it.
It was one of those, and I actually debated. I'm sitting there, I'm like, could I actually sit the rest of the day like this and not like wait out how long I have to tell my dad? And I was like, man, I kind of just, obviously being safe, I gotta call my dad. And I call him, and I'm like, hey, you're not in the tree yet, are you? And he goes, I am. Why? I'm like, kind of need your help.
You don't need to tell him what yet. I need your help.
I could like see my dad's face through this phone call. He goes, what'd you do? And I'm like, well, the bottom fell down to the ground. And he goes, you didn't connect. Like, he just went off on me. And he's like, he goes, be there in 30 minutes.
I called my dad once
Yeah.
for not a safety situation. It was, so I had gotten my first rifle. Like, I was using my dad's hand-me-down shotgun. It's the first deer I ever killed. I shot in the neck from like 10 yards from the ground with a 12 gauge
That's my
pump action.
first bow kill was the neck.
It was crazy. I mean, the deer did not, it dispatched in like 5 yards.
It's a very humane way. It just wasn't on purpose.
Yeah, it was. Yeah, I don't know. It was crazy. But so then I was like, I want to get a rifle. So I finally forked up like whatever it was, $700, my own money, and bought a rifle. Got a Remington 700 30-06 bolt action, which I still have and I love. And the first year I got to use it, there's like this blowdown leaning against the tree that I was sitting under. And so I wrapped the sling around my arm. I heard a twig snap. I saw a movement. I rested the barrel of the gun on the blowdown. Squeeze. Boom. Like, but I didn't see what had happened. I racked another round instantly, and I'm looking like, what the fuck happened here? Did I get her? Like, what's going on? And my buddies had just come over to like check in on me for lunch, and I was like, so they were just walking away, and then I blast this deer. So they were like, did you just shoot something? And I was like, yeah, I think I just shot a doe, but it ended up being a 90-yard shot. She was not running, but moving fast.
Yeah.
Like she was a nervous doe. She was trying to get the heck out of somewhere. So we go to the area where I thought I got her, and I could see on the tree just blood splattered on the tree. And then she didn't go far, and it turned up being a perfect hard shot in the center of the heart. And I was like, oh my God, I feel like a sniper.
Yeah.
I was like, I am
the deadliest man.
That
alive.
was like the first time I got to use my rifle, and that was the first deer I killed with my rifle. And it felt like, wow. So then I go to gut this thing, and then I only got that buck the year prior with my dad, and he had gutted it for me because it was my first deer ever.
Yeah.
I'm an adult. Like, I'm 22 or whatever. And so I'm like, I don't know how to gut a deer. I've never done this by myself. And the last time I got to witness it was a year ago. So now I have if you don't use it, you lose it. You forget it. So then I'm like, watching YouTube, but I don't have any good cell reception. So I'm like trying to watch YouTube and prop up my phone on this like stump. And I'm trying to I got kind of far, but I didn't like pull the gut cavity out. I didn't really tear that belly skin and all that stuff and do the, the anus stuff and all that jazz. Right. So I call my dad. I'm like, hey dad, you coming up for lunch anytime soon? Yeah, I'm getting down now. I'm like, can you stop here on the way? I need some help. What do you need help with? Well, I shot a doe. I want some help gutting it. He's like, you don't know how to do it? I was like, well, no, not really. No, I don't really know how to do it. And maybe this isn't exactly how the story goes as far as the conversation, but he comes over. He's like, are you watching YouTube? Like, well, yeah, I'm trying to figure it out. He's like, holy shit. So he goes, you got to pull. And it looked like a scene out of Dexter. I was like, Jesus, you're really giving it to it. This blood splatter. I was like, oh my God. And then, now you just got to get it done. You just got to
it's one of those things. No one enjoys that process.
But the more I've done it, I'm still pretty terrible at it. Like my buddy Greg, who does a podcast, will tell you, he helped me gut the buck last year. I did it, but then he kind of cleaned some things up. He's like, you didn't do the best job. You still got some stuff in here that probably shouldn't be in here.
Yeah.
And I was like, yeah, I'm not that great at it. Sorry,
everybody
man.
is, man.
Yeah. My one buddy Joel is incredible at it. He forgot his knife one year and he carries a razor blade in his wallet because he's that guy. Because he's just, you never know, I might need it. And then he did. And he was he shot 2 deer and got him with a single razor blade. And did it fast. He did it. He's very fast. I feel like if you could picture someone with a butterfly knife going, that's him when he's gutting deer. It's done,
Dang.
He'll ask, he's like, can I gut it? I'm like, well, go right ahead, buddy. Cause I know you'll be done in 5 minutes. If I do it, I'm going to have sweat dripping off my nose, cussing and swearing like Elmer Fudd. And it's going to be 35 minutes.
Yeah. I don't know. Somebody that excited. you just going to be like,
go nuts, pal.
We're friends. We're not that close of friends.
Oh, we are though. That's why I love them.
Yeah.
But no, that's pretty funny stuff. I don't know. It's cool to talk how these worlds kind of collide. And I think I've said this before, every hunter is probably a fisher, but not every fisher is a hunter.
Yeah.
And I don't know if that's actually obviously that may or may not be entirely true, but it seems most hunters fish, but then fishing is their leisure. But not every fisherman is hunting.
Yeah.
So it's cool. There is a blend there. There is a Venn diagram. I think that Venn diagram is not completely balanced in the center. I think there is that crossover from the hunt category or whatever you want to call it. But it's cool that you were able to bail me out of not being able to do a podcast from our studio tonight. Stressing about it.
No, dude, I'll say it's been nice to not go full bore fishing conversation.
Yeah, because who do you know? What's going on with the classic?
Yeah.
How do you? I don't know. I don't know anything like that.
Yeah, I mean, and we've talked about it. I would love to sit down and talk hunting, and talk outdoors, just general crazy stuff that we do as outdoorsmen and adventure folk. So this was fun.
Yeah, nature, getting outside. Nature. What's that? I don't know the person.
You ever seen the YouTube video of the guy that goes, that's pretty neat?
That's pretty neat. I know it's an aspen. You can tell by the way it is.
Yeah.
It's a buckback. You can tell by the way it is.
Yeah.
That's about me right there. I don't actually know what I'm talking about half the time.
That video is incredible.
It's a classic YouTube video.
It is.
I would love to see more kayak hunt content come from the serious angler. And maybe, I don't know. I don't think anyone knows this, so maybe I shouldn't even say it. I'm not going to say it. Yep, I'm stopping right there. There's a different page that I manage that might be more in line. That's a fun page that has nothing to do with anything that I don't think anyone knows it's me. So I don't want to tell people now.
Oh, your alias is...
I have an alias. Yeah. It's a good outlet for me.
Now people are going to be hounding
But you have the serious dangler.
Yeah,
people know about
I don't
that?
know if I'm going to keep it, to be honest.
And the idea there is for you to be more lighthearted,
yeah,
whimsical, fun, sarcastic.
Yeah, because serious angler, obviously, we're so focused solely on learning, and our motto over there is forever a student, and that meaning that you're never trying to say yourself that you're an expert of anything or you know everything. You're always striving to learn something, whether it's a conversation or you're out in the water or talk on a podcast, whatever it is, you're always trying to learn, and that's how we have fun. Don't get me wrong on that show, but it's for the most part, it's always dedicated to learning. Nowadays, you got to have fun. And I think with the serious angler, I thought serious dangler kind of sounds like this goober, You know, like we always thought about having like the main logo for it being a guy that just has a completely bird's nested reel to high heaven, like whatever it might be. But we definitely are going to have a lifestyle aspect to the brand. We just don't know what that is right now. The thing with Serious Anglers, it kind of collides with. So it's one extra letter, Serious Anglers. So we might need something a little bit different to break it apart. But nonetheless, it's fun.
If you ever want to step down from serious, not step down, like put up, I mean, if you want to like, cameo on and bring it down a notch from seriousness into more lighthearted beer drinking stuff, you're welcome on the Okayest Fisher podcast anytime with Greg and Matt. And those guys will chop it up with you. They know more than they let on. They're very humble about it, but they're no pros.
Let's do it. Yeah,
so
that'd be
fun. Could be a fun one for you too.
Yeah.
Which, by the way, I'll just add some thoughts in here at the end. Be sure to check out our other podcasts on our network, the Onset Podcast with Elizabeth Brownell. The name Onset is, synonymous with being an onset hunter, but it's also synonymous with just the onset of a new adventure, new beginnings, new experiences, and so forth. So it's not specifically onset adult hunting. It's all of these things, even though it might cover some of that stuff. But she is herself an adult onset hunter. So that's where the name kind of came from. Okayest Fisher, which I just mentioned, with Greg and Matt Strime and Greg Tubbs, they run that, and they talk anything from muskies to inshore fishing for, ocean saltfish to bluegill and through the ice and trolling for coho, king salmon, and all those big lakers out on the Great Lake. And by us, that's Lake Michigan. We've been on, what is this lake out here?
So if this camera could flip, we have the St. Lawrence River right here, which is connected to Lake Ontario.
Yeah. And then also we have Upduck, which is the blend of upland hunting and waterfowl hunting. Those guys do great. They're super knowledgeable. There's 3 hosts. Matt Jeske, Tyler Meaden, and Jeff Ludicky host that podcast. And the through line there is dogs. All those guys have dogs, whether it's Tyler that does the hunt tests and a lot of dog training, or like actual hunting for like upland plus duck hunting and waterfowl. So great podcast if you're into that. I think that's all the ones we have now. We have a turkey one coming on deck soon and a habitat land management coming online soon. So stay tuned as the network grows, but check those out as well. And thanks for tuning into this different version of the Okayest Hunter podcast tonight. We'll be back to our normal routine next week. But cheers, everybody, and thanks, Bailey, for being here.
Yeah, that was fun. You're gonna be like, never have him on ever again. It's like